One of David's mentors once told him the best deal he ever did was the one he didn't do. Making money investing in land requires that we buy right, but also that we avoid buying wrong. Even experienced investors make mistakes from time to time and buy a property that they probably shouldn't. So in today's podcast, David and I are going to warn you about 6 mistakes that land investors make when buying properties. Knowledge is power, my friends, so listen on, and hopefully one of your best deals will be the one you didn't do. If there's one thing I've learned in my business career, it's that I don't have all the answers. Look, I'm an ambitious guy, and I like to make progress fast. The secret to achieving success fast is to harness the brain power of other people in the community. That's what the Land.MBA Smart Bar is all about. As veteran investor Jesse Marchand said, the Smart Bar gave me the motivation and knowledge I needed to push through the tough times and accelerate my path to success. 7-figure investor Mitch Milan likes to say, there's one meeting each week that I never miss. It's the Land.MBA Smart Bar. It's like happy hour with my land investing buddies. I always learn something. So if you want to network with like-minded people, make new friends, learn heaps, get questions answered, answer questions for others, learn new strategies, get accountability, and overall get inspired while having a great time, check out the Land.MBA Smart Bar. For a short time, podcast listeners can get 20% off the annual plan, which comes to an insane $86 per month. Compare this to other programs which charge $250 a month or more. This is hands down the best deal you're going to find and the best way to invest in your success. So don't wait. Please go to land.mba/mastermind. That's land.mba/mastermind and use promo code podcast22 to join today. Hello, all you gorgeous entrepreneurial land investors. I am Howard Zonder, and this is my very good-looking partner who reflects as much knowledge as he does light. How you doing, Dave?
I'm very enlightened today. How are you? Oh, my shiny chrome dome.
Yeah. Well, I know we made an agreement that we were never going to talk about the weather, but I got to tell you, my whole day started just clearing my driveway.
We got a bunch of snow.
Yeah, we haven't had a winter. This is
really?
it.
We've got the opposite.
Oh, really?
No, yeah, it's been cold and we've had a pretty good amount of snow.
Wow. All right. Well, then I guess that makes it hard to sell properties out in Colorado because, you can't see anything under the snow.
Not necessarily here. It's some places, yeah, but other places where the access is good, it's less seasonal than you would think.
Good. Well, let's see. You know what? This whole business we're all starting, it's all about buying properties. How can we get more inventory so we have stuff to sell?
That's right.
And yet, many of us, not all the time, hopefully we learn from our mistakes, but we do make mistakes when buying properties. And so on this podcast today, we are going to cover 5 mistakes that people make when acquiring properties. These are 5 mistakes you really want to avoid. Because if you buy the wrong property or you buy it wrong, it's really going to mess you up on the other side, and you could potentially lose money, or hey, it's the land business. Probably what you're going to do is end up breaking even, but still, you don't want to make the mistake. So we're going to help you out here by just listing what are probably 5 of some of the most common mistakes that people make when they are acquiring properties. So, Dave, kick us off.
Oh, well, the first one to think of is just using the wrong comps. So, could lead to overpaying for a property. And by that, I mean comps that are too old, especially, right now we're in a changing market that's, sort of been gradually changing from a seller's market to a buyer's market. And, you gotta, people have been over the last couple of years, it's been so crazy and people have really been chasing values up and increasing their percentages. So we're sort of at that time where you got to be a little bit careful. And I'm trying to use comps, sold comps that are, 90 days if there are some, and no more than 6 months for sure. And if you can't find ones that are newer than that, then you just got to maybe add a little fudge factor. But you can also, comps that aren't relevant, like maybe they're too far away from the property or they're very different types of properties. They might be the same size and maybe the same acreage, but they could be vastly different, have vastly different attributes, such as access, such as trees versus barren, the slope, other attributes, like power and water and things like that. Got to make sure that they are, as like kind as possible. And then we come down to zoning. You might have a property that's zoned differently, like ag versus res or commercial, et cetera. And that can really impact your values. So make sure that your comps are reflective in the zoning as well.
Yeah, when you look on the map and you look at comps, even sometimes when they're not that far away, they're not right. For example, let's just say that you were buying a property and you looked at comps nearby and they may be higher than what you should be paying. And the reason is because your land, or the land that's in the comps are in an established subdivision. And I don't mean by established subdivision that there's houses on it, but there is an established subdivision and there's parcel, the properties are platted out and whatnot. And your property is unincorporated county land. Just that one difference can cause a big difference in the value of land.
Sure. Oh, you know what? You just made me think of a great example that happened to me last year. On the flip side, though, so my acquisitions manager was looking at the accepted offer. I think we had offered like $40,000 or something like this on a property, and was an acre and a quarter, and it was in an area that was sort of mixed. Well, like it could have been commercial, could have been residential, so when she was looking at it, because we don't do very many commercial lots, she was thinking that it was a residential infill lot. And so she found a couple of comps and like, oh, geez, we can only sell this for about 30. So she adjusted our offer from 40 down to $8,000. And they still took it. Long story as to why. But then she sent it over to me for approval. And I looked at it going, man, I think this might be commercial. So I got on the county assessor site and found out that it last sold in like 1992 for $75,000. So I'm thinking this thing's got to be worth 150 to 200 grand. And sure enough, it was. So that was on the high, we benefited the opposite of it, but it's a great example of how the values can be drastically different just from residential to commercial zoning.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons this business even exists is because it's an inefficient market. And so prices, even within a small geographical area, can vary greatly for either reasons that make sense or sometimes reasons that don't make sense. And, it never hurts to cherry pick the comps a little bit, depending upon whether you're buying or selling.
Absolutely. Yeah. And let's never forget getting, if you're just not absolutely sure, get on the horn and call some local realtors and get that boots on the ground knowledge. And if it's a really rural area, make sure that that realtor works in that area close by, because a lot of them will cover big areas on areas that they'll actually list your properties on, but they may not know that, they may not live or know that specific part of the county as well as they say they do. So you want to make sure to get as local as possible and get that good boots on the ground advice.
Yep. All right. Number one, using the wrong comps. Number two,
buying in that ever dreaded flood zone.
Yeah.
Today we have really good mapping tools to sniff that out.
Actually, what I would say is that gets you started.
Yeah, of course. You got to
Like
confirm.
even the FEMA maps, the flood maps. It's FEMA, right? Is it or is it? Yeah. FEMA. That's a snapshot in time. Things change, rivers change, and the flood zone areas change. So if there is even a suspicion that a property is either in a flood zone or partially in a flood zone, you definitely want to make sure you're talking to somebody in the county that knows the area, knows the property, because there is the possibility that flood zone either has receded, then it's no longer an issue, or it's increased and now covers a much more significant part of the property, which can take a buildable property and make it unbuildable.
Right. No, really good point. You actually absolutely want to talk to experts, and certainly it depends on the value of the property, how much juice there is in the squeeze as to how much time you want to put into it. But if we're talking about, high priced properties and nice properties, especially let's say if it's really nice profit potential and something maybe that is in a, it's got perfect access and a great area to create a subdivide, then spend the extra time, because you actually can also appeal on a flood zone too, to get it changed. That takes some doing. I've not done it personally, but I've definitely heard about it being done. So if you stumble upon a deal that's got a lot of juice, take the time and see if that flood zone's really valid. Call the county and do what you need to do to figure that out, because potentially you could be walking away from a gold mine there.
Yeah, totally. The next one is more likely a bit of a rookie mistake, but it's not inconceivable that it could happen at any point, even with experienced.
Yeah. So you're talking about overlooking red flags. Now, what do we mean by that? There could be many types of red flags, but I'll let Howard describe this, but one of our students recently brought us a deal to review, and on the surface it looked okay, but there was a little bit of fishiness to it, and we found out why. And let me just preface this by one of the reasons that I had a mentor once tell me, this was back when I was flipping houses, the best deal I ever did was the deal I didn't do. And so Howard saved this student's neck by helping him do the right due diligence and not do this deal. So I'll let you explain it, Howard.
Yeah, so he signed up or for this property. He requested that we do the land speed due diligence, and we did the whole thing. And now this was interesting because this guy was pushing really, really hard. He said, I need $10,000 or whatever it was, and I need it right now. So if you want to do the deal, that's where we're going to start. And
wanted him to do a promissory note on the 10 grand.
Yeah, to do whatever,
before he got the due diligence done. He just wanted the money now.
Exactly. And right there's a red flag. Somebody wants you to give him money before you even know that it's a property you want to buy. That's a problem.
Yep.
And he's probably trying to put you under some kind of artificial time constraints. And then when we did the due diligence, what we found out is that the deed was a substitute trustee deed, and it didn't actually have the guy's name on it or the company that he said that the property was in. So there were all kinds of red flags, and you only want to go down. This was a more expensive property, so you only want to go down the rat hole so far, because once there's enough red flags, you just got to walk away. You got to say, look, there is something. it's not passing the sniff test. There's something not on the up and up here. And the reason I say that this is, sometimes more of an issue with newbies is because when you're early on and you're hungry, you want to get that first deal, or you want to get that, early deals done. And oh, the numbers look great and I can make, 50, 60, $70,000 on this deal. You want to do it. But, my grandmother had a saying, and my mother drilled it into my head, and I've never forgotten it. It's probably one of the most important things I've ever heard. What my grandmother used to say was, when in doubt, the answer is no. So if you get into one of these opportunities and you're just getting some signals from the seller that just don't feel quite right, there are some red flags there. When in doubt, the answer is no. And as Dave said, sometimes the best deal is the one you walk away from.
Absolutely. Always got to be ready to walk away. And we'll talk about that on another point. So number 4, not understanding land use.
Yeah.
I'll let you talk about that one as well.
So you have to understand, one, who's the market for the land, and then understand the zoning. It could be ag, it could be residential, it could be commercial, whatever it is. The price should correlate to the zoning. So that's one thing. And it's not just the zoning. It could be just the rules, the county rules for the land. So I'll give you an example, because I made this mistake. This is a mistake I actually made. I bought this property in Teller County, Colorado, and it was on a kind of a steep slope. At least part of it was, and it was shaped like a funnel. And so by the road, it was very narrow, and then as you went deeper up the mountain, it widened up. And so clearly the narrow part of the funnel was where a driveway would go in. And this was in an established subdivision. And so there were costs. There was a yearly HOA fee. There was water that was piped along the roads. So there was water available to all the properties. And so there was a yearly water fee as well. Well, to pay the yearly HOA fee and the water fee, you'd want to build upon it. I mean, the whole point of this is they wanted people building. The problem was, and this would not have come from the county. This came from the fire department. The rule is that a fire truck must be able to go up to the property, head in, and then come back down the driveway head first. The problem is because of the shape of the property and the slope, there was no way the fire truck could turn around. Therefore, unless you acquired the property next to it, it was an unbuildable lot. And so you buy the lot and then you end up with a yearly HOA fee and a yearly water fee. Mm-hmm. And that's challenging. I will say that without getting into details, I had an acceptable exit on that property, but that's not the important part of the story. The important part of the story is, you really need to understand. So in that case, it was in a subdivision that had an active HOA that was very focused on people building on those lots, but it was unbuildable.
Right. Well, I mean, at least you bought it well enough to exit and not lose too much skin. Right?
No, I didn't lose any skin, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's good. So, all right. So that was land use, not confirming the legal description. So this is a very important part on due diligence, folks, and especially if you're doing any self-close deals. Okay. You get there is a legal description on the list that you download, and that's great. And most of the time those are accurate, but a lot of the time they're accurate, but you always want to confirm that preferably from the vesting deed. You want to confirm it with the county, and preferably, just make sure you've got the same legal description that's on the vesting deed. I actually bought a property when I was a rookie. It's probably, I don't know, certainly within my first 10 deals. And it said that it was 40 acres. Well, I didn't confirm it. I bought it. I paid for 40 acres, but it turned out that it was only 20 acres. So luckily I bought it right. So didn't make a lot of money on it, but I was able to sell it and still make a little bit of money. But those are little things that can go gotcha.
Yeah, totally. So when we do when we do land speed due diligence, usually that information is already available. If it was on the list, whether it came from Data Tree or from the county, it doesn't really matter. If you go to the county's website, you can get the legal description. However, usually the county will have a caveat right there on the website that said, not for official or legal use. This is kind of a best efforts information providing, a provision of the legal description. So the reason it's not included in the information that I pass to my team when we do due diligence is because I want them to do the right work to get the right legal description the right way. And the right way to do that is to pull the most recent transfer deed and get it off of there because that's been filed, or to verify it directly with the county is the second way to do it. Sometimes we do both.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, if you're closing through title company is going to do that for you.
Right.
So finally, we have a number 6, and that is
drum roll, please.
Overpaying, paying too much for a property.
The biggest mistake. I don't know if that's actually the biggest mistake. I mean, there's a bunch of others we could have put on here, like we probably at the end could have put a list of honorable mentions, things like missing a lien or something like that.
Right.
But paying too much is, especially right now, is a real issue because this whole business is predicated on buying well. If you buy well, and the examples we've already given today, you can usually get out even if you make a mistake.
Right. You just look at all the examples that we gave above. Probably a lot of people listening to this podcast have made some sort of these types of mistakes that we've already mentioned here. I know I have. But because typically our margins are so good, we typically buy so well that, we're able to, get out with some skin still. And, you can't say that so much with houses where people are, relying on forcing the equity by improving the property. And, sometimes you have a market shift and the margin was minimal to begin with. Well, we're typically on such good margins in this business that you can make a mistake and live to fight another day. But, you got to know your numbers and looking above on, making sure to use the right comps, knowing the zoning and who's going to be that buyer to properly understand that value of that property so that you can buy it right. And look, sometimes maybe you're a beginner and it's your first deal, or you've only done a couple deals and you don't have a lot of deal flow and you're anxious to make a deal work, or you've slacked off on your mail and now all of a sudden you're like, I got to get some mail out, and but you don't have a lot of deal flow. So you're trying to make a deal work instead of ramping up your mail and creating lots of deal flow. So now you can cherry pick and not be afraid to walk away from a deal, and don't let your emotions take over. Just stick to your guns, stick to your numbers, and walk away. But, many times we will pass on a deal where we just couldn't quite get the seller down to that price. And I like to put those on a nurture campaign. I don't mark them dead. I mark them nurture. If I was close and we couldn't quite get the deal done. And, many times, months later, a year later, that something changes in that person's life. And now maybe they're willing to sell to you for the price that you're willing to pay.
Yeah, I think what you just said, if we were to take everything we talked about, the six mistakes to avoid, and summarize, okay, what's the conclusion for this? The conclusion is this business starts with mailing. It starts with going out and finding deals. And if you have enough deals, then you never feel that sort of pressure to take something that's not quite right. So don't ever do anything that's not quite right. When in doubt, the answer is no. And it's a lot easier to say no when you've got enough deals that you can cherry pick the best ones. So that's great advice, Dave.
That's right. Sum it up in 2 words: buy right. You make your money on the purchase, period. That's real estate. You make your money when you buy it. So,
all right. That is it, everybody. I hope this was nice and concise and useful for you. If you liked what you heard there, please subscribe. Make sure you don't miss an episode. If you like it, and give us a thumbs up, that we would love to have that. If there's anything you want to, if you want to hear anything on the next podcast, just put it in the comments, and we'll pick that up, and we'll create a podcast around it. So have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time on the Land.MBA podcast.
Adios.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, had a bit of fun, and walked away with some actionable insights that you can apply to your business. Dave and I have got some great content and interviews planned, so don't forget to rate and review, and of course subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. If we mention any interesting links or tools, you'll find them in the show notes. To learn more about Land.MBA, visit our website at, wait for it, Land.MBA. See you next time on the Land.MBA podcast.